This is Andy Purwell for Boxing News. I'm joined by trainer Dave Coldwell over Zoom. Dave, I imagine you was having a pretty chilled weekend up until about 2.5 hours ago. Yeah, before we come on to the obvious topic, how are you?
I'm all right. I was actually, I'm a little bit late to the party because I was in the gym with my little boy. So we've just finished, and then I've looked at my phone as you do, and I saw a statement from Matchroom. I was like, "What's this?" So he's, oh my God, I just can't believe it. It's just, yeah, I was looking forward to that fight. Not gonna lie, I didn't find as though there was a problem with it. Joshua against White too. It's not the fights that we wanted to see at the moment at heavyweight division, but it's a good domestic dust up, and I was looking forward to it. And it's just all just gone to shit again.
What was your immediate reaction to seeing that news when it first came through?
Do you know what now? And it's quite bad this, but as somebody that's working in the sport and a boxing fan, it's kind of like, what happens now? Because does this mean we've got more months of just not knowing what's really happening and a lot of everything up in the air and nothing straightforward anymore? There's this obviously where it's confidential and you don't hear what it is, blah blah blah. There's all the process to go through. Nothing straightforward anymore. All you see is that the show's cancelled. That's it. Initially, that's it. But I don't know what he's failed on. No doubt there'll be a reason. There'll be everybody that fails a drugs test, whether it's legit or whether it is some sort of accident or not accident, but without knowing or whatever. Everybody's got an excuse, whether it's meat, whether it's eggs, whether it's fucking something contaminated, spiked, everything. There's always an excuse. So then he puts everything up in air, and there's all I'm a bit sick of it, to be honest. I feel as though the sport needs. We always used to take the piss. When I was younger, I remember cycling had such a bad reputation, and everybody being a cheat, and had a really bad reputation. I feel as though boxing's going that way, where because of the actions of a few, everybody's getting tarred with the same sort of brush. I see comments like, "Oh, they're all at it," and they're not all at it. There are some that are at it, and that sum is quite a big number. But in terms of how many people are in the sport and not at it, then it's only a small element of fighters. But they're tarnishing the reputation of the sport and the other fighters. There's kids up and down the country, around the world, that aren't cheating. There are good fighters that aren't cheating. There are champions that aren't cheating, but they're going up against people that are cheating, and it's just not fair. And so when somebody gets caught, I think that's a good thing for the sport, because it shows that they ain't got a clear run. But I do worry, because I do feel as though the people that have got the millions of purse, the purse money is millions and shitloads of money. They're affording to have the doctors and the people on board that are one step ahead of the the drug catchers from the drug testers, and the drug testers are always playing catch up. There's always this shit that can mask this, and there's this if you take that, all that sort of stuff. And then you just say, "Oh, well, it's just this and it's just that." Actually, I was taking it for that, or this is found in that. But actually, it's a masker. But you can't prove that what they've took, that's being masked. So I just feel as though there's always a cloud. It's always a grey area now, and it's not good for the sport. But because there is this blame this, blame that, and so therefore the stronghold of the testers for the suspensions and stuff like that are quite weakened. I don't feel as though there's enough deterrent for the people that are cheating and the people that are like proper, like looking for that extra, a fighter that's getting older or a fighter that's... Listen, at the end of the day, there are things there are ingredients in foods and things like that that you take that are on the ban list and that you wouldn't even think of. It's quite common. You can't take a lemsip, but not everyone's aware of that. Or it's like, what? But the people that are at the top end of the sport, they've got nutritionists, like doctors and proper top people working with them and spending absolute hundreds of thousands on camps and all this that we keep hearing. They've got no excuse, because those people should know what's in everything that's going into their mouths. Do you know what I mean? If you're spending shitloads of money on this dietitian and nutritionist whose job is to specifically tell you what to eat and provide that food for you, and cook your meal and all that sort of shit that these top fighters do have, then what the fuck is he doing allowing you to put some certain food in? If that's your excuse, how is that? How is he be doing that when that's his job, to make sure that he's up to date on what's on the ban list, ingredients on every food? These nutritionists know everything that's in these foods. So the excuse there, but for the cheaters out there, and there are cheaters out there, they're scumbags, because you're looking for that you're looking to cheat at the end of the day. So and it's boxing. It's not, you've said it so many times, it's not running. It's not somebody trying to run 2/10 quicker than what they'd normally run so they could win that gold. You're going in there to make your body be more capable of creating more damage to the other person. Especially these fighters that are going in there to knock people out, not technical boxers. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's they've got a free pass. But what I'm saying is, when you're going in there your whole game is to go in there and knock somebody out, render somebody unconscious, damage somebody in that fight in order to win, and then you're taking peds to make you be able to do even more damage, that's a scumbag, and needs to be treated as such.
Dave, people pointing out over social media, this is the third test in Dillian's career that's come back positive. What do you make of it?
Oh, well, what can you make of it? Is listen, I've always got on with Dillian in the past. The first one, from what I know and what I remember, it was an energy drink, and so yes, it's like I said, somebody can take a lemsip, somebody can take a drink, and just electrolyte drink that's not in full sport, an electrolyte drink where you think you're all right after just making a weigh-in, and you go and get this electrolyte drink, and it could contain banned substances in there, but it's an electrolyte drink. You think, oh, it's fine, just get it from the chemist. But you can't do that. Jack 3D, I think at the time, had just been banned, and so I kind of think, well, fair enough. The whole second drugs test thing, do you know what? I can't even remember. It was another one of those where it's just B test this, whatever, blah. The B is the same as the A. I don't understand where everybody makes a big thing about B tests. But then there was I know from what I remember that was apparently, I remember UK put out a statement saying that it wasn't a fail or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But then now there's another one, and it's like, you're either the unluckiest fighter on the planet, you're stupid, or you're a cheat. And just because you've not cheated the last two doesn't mean that you haven't cheated this time. I don't know what it's failed on. I don't know what it is. All in all, it's the same thing again. All we know right now is the adverse findings in a drugs test that's led to a failed drugs test. And it's the same thing where they all say, Jared Miller said it, everybody says it, I ain't done it. And, the other one is, you're paying for VADA, so you're paying for drug tests, so why would I cheat? I know I'm paying for drug tests. But this goes back to, again, where what I'm saying is there are people around the sport, doctors, nutritionists, whatever you want to call them, that are very, very clued up on timings, and all they've got to do is fuck it up. You know.
Dave, how disheartening is it specifically when you consider the last week that we've just had when we had a new A Fulton,
Yeah.
Spence-Crawford, and then obviously everybody was looking forward to next week. It would have been a big heavyweight fight in the UK. Obviously, the Zone have been looking for their first big pay-per-view fight prior to obviously the Conor Ben situation and him having to pull out of the Eubank Jr. fight. And obviously, we have all this news break today with regards to Dillian. How disheartening is it when you look at how amazing last week was? And
Oh, massively. Massively. I mean, I've just put a tweet out. I've said, you know, we've literally had a good few days, and then it's like breaks over, you're back to your shit. The problem is when the high profile fighters are getting caught out, which is good. It's good. If you're cheating, it's good. You're getting caught, but it tarnishes. It's like what I said about this, because the big fights aren't happening in the heavyweight division. People assume that boxing's shit and all the fights aren't happening. But look at the fights we're getting. You know, not just last week. You know, you had Haney Lomachenko. You know, Garcia Tank. There's a lot of good fights happening. You've got domestic. You've got Boatsy against Dan Aziz coming up. You know, Wood against Warrington. Fights are happening, just not in heavyweight division. But because it's not happening in heavyweight division, people that aren't boxing people aren't main fans. You know, they casually watch boxing. You know, sometimes they watch it if it's a big fight. They assume that boxing's not doing anything and it's shit or it's flat. It's not. It's really good times. But the same thing is when a high-profile fighter fails a drugs test, then they assume everybody's cheating, and so it puts boxing back in the gutter again. And not everybody's cheating. Like I said, not everybody's cheating. In relation to the amount of boxers that are out there, it's a small percentage of cheating. But it needs sorting. There needs to be stronger deterrence. There needs to be, you know, bigger punishments, more defined, stringent testing, less grey areas. I just feel as though that's why I'm saying, when you said to me, what was your initial reaction when you failed a drug test? Well, number one, I don't know what's failed on. Number two, how long's process going to take before we find out? It's just a grey area. So you're kind of like half numb to it. It's like, fucking hell again. But you're half numb to it. Half of you is really pissed off and you think, fucking hell, it's cheating. But then other half say, well, we don't know. So you kind of like, you know, some people initially going to say, ah, cheating scumbag. And some people are going to be like, yeah, but let's wait, because you like to see what all the facts are first. But then we don't get to see what all the facts are. We've seen that recently. We don't know all the facts. We just get told what people want you to be told. And so it's frustrating as a fan or for me, as somebody that works in the sport, I train fighters. I've got a stable of young fighters right now, right? Apart from Ebony's the eldest, but I've got a stable of young fighters. And they're all good kids. They're all talented kids. They're all good people. And I look after my fighters and they're like my family. And the thought of this not getting cleared up and the thought of one of my fighters going in against somebody that's cheating, and it's not just a case of cheating now. This is why we need more random testing. It's the random testing we need, where somebody just gets a knock on the door and they pop along and they get drug tested, because the money needs to come from somewhere. There's enough money that gets paid out by fighters, by promoters, sanctioning fees, by all sorts, licensing fees, all this sort of stuff. There's enough money in the sport for more money to go into random drug testing. So not fight week or whatever, like right at the beginning, fighter's just coming back into camp. A fighter's out of camp. He's not got a date, but he gets a knock on the door. You know, people need to be caught out on this, because if not, more and more people are going to take the gamble of cheating, and you know, it's only a matter of time before we have an absolute disaster. This sort of stuff just pisses you off when it's before the fight, and it just pisses you off. But if somebody gets hurt and then somebody in the post-fight drugs test fails, then what does that do to sport?
Dave, our understanding is Matchroom are working to try and find a replacement opponent for Anthony Joshua. I've seen a lot of suggestions over social media, maybe picking up one of the other heavyweights who are currently on the card. You've obviously got the Dempsey McKean, Philip Ergovich fight, Derek Chisora, Gerald Washington being announced. I saw Sam Jones suggest Derek Chisora stepping in to face AJ. I'm not sure what people's thoughts on that are, but is there anybody who you look at and think would not necessarily be a suitable replacement, but at such short notice you would kind of accept stepping in on this note at this time and facing Anthony Joshua?
There's two completely different ways, three even. There's completely different ways of looking at this, and this is the problem. Is the initial reaction will be the fans. The fans have forked out shitloads of money for the ticket prices, which is another subject. But I just think ticket prices for boxing now is just a joke. I just, you know, you're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, and your ticket prices are just ridiculous. We're wanting to grow the sport, and it's not just Matchroom, it's everybody. Ticket prices are just ridiculous, and this is it's a good domestic fight, but they're still paying extortionate amounts of money for ringside seats and anything that's a decent side, you know, decent viewed seat. So these people, having said that, these people have paid for tickets, have paid for hotels, paid for train tickets or whatever. And then now what do? They've paid for that fight. The majority, you know yourself, you've been there from first bell, first fight to main event. Realistically, nobody gives, when it's an AJ bill, nobody gives a shit about the undercard. The undercard fighters, fans, and people they know, yes. But in the main, half the people in a bar still arriving at the venue until it gets later and later and later. So they're paying mainly because they want this big fight. They come to watch this big fight. So if you take Dillian Whyte out, you put Dempsey McKean in, or somebody like that. If you've paid 600 quid for a ticket or whatever it is, 500 quid, you're gonna be like, what the fuck? But you might have also seen a couple of fights on undercard. So, well, I would watch that. I would come to watch that, but I ain't paying 500-600 quid for it. So what do you do? So for a promoter, it's a nightmare because they've marketed the prices for a ticket for that fight and then put these undercard fights that might add a little bit of attraction to certain people. But now what do? Do you then, right, if you've paid 600 quid for that ticket, but right, now we've replaced it, we're going to reduce it to 300 or whatever. I'm just saying off the top of my head. But then what do you do with the rest of the prices? You stagger them. How do you work it? So from a promoter's point of view, it's very, very difficult, this. From a promoter's point of view that has got a fight that's supposed to be going into a Deontay Wilder fight next, you've got to kind of like half please the fans, but not too much because the fans want to see a high-risk fight, Hergovich or you know, something where there's jeopardy. People say Martin McCauley or whatever. But the promoter don't want to get him bumped off or get him when it's a hard fight. It's, you know, he's thinking about the next fight, which is a massive fight. And if you do get bumped off, then everyone's going to say, fucking hell, what are you doing? You got the Wilder fight in December. So a lot of people, don't forget, were saying, fair play to AJ for wanting to fight now when he's got that fight right in front of him. You know what can happen. He can get knocked out and then it's all gone. But then from the management point of view, if I'm managing AJ, I don't want him fighting a killer next, like as a week's notice, you know, because I'm thinking, you know, we've got to get him a win, a good win, a bit more confidence going into a Wilder fight. And plus, you've got the big lure of the Wilder fight you don't want to blow. So the fans are the ones where they're paying the money, but they're going to be hurt quite a lot on this because don't expect a really good replacement, but you can't blame the promoter for that. And really, from a coach's point of view, you can't. If I'm Derek James and this, you know, we want to work on things, thinking about the Wilder fight, we want to work on things that we're working on in the gym just to get him comfortable. You know, his second fight with him, you know, second fight together. Then again, they're not going to want an absolute killer, and they're not going to want the wheels to come off. So it's a difficult situation all the way around. This situation isn't the promoter's fault. It isn't Team Joshua's fault. There's one man that's failed a drugs test, so it's him or his team's fault. It's him. He's failed a drugs test. But if you want to go down the avenue, oh well, it was in my food, or it was in whatever, then it's fucking whoever you're employing, mate. It's just difficult, and it's just again, it's just a kick in the teeth. There's like I said, there's too much grey areas for me in this now. I haven't got the answers. That's not my job. It's above my pay grade. But there are people out there that would have answers, and I suspect it's about money. You know, paying for people to be randomly tested, UCAD or the governing bodies, the sanctioning councils to put proper penalties in place to deter cheats, to deter people from or make people even more careful about what they're doing.
Dave, I'm sure you had a much more chilled and kind of quaint and relaxed weekend planned out, but rather than what you find yourself doing now. So I'm going to leave you to get back to that. I appreciate you jumping on at such short notice, and I'll hopefully speak to you soon. Thank you for speaking to me in Boxing News.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.